One of the major tasks for parents in all cultures is to raise children to be culturally competent members of their society. On December 1988, when I was 14, my family got on a plane in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and arrived in Toronto, Canada. My parents were about the age that I am now. When I think back to that time, I wonder what it was like to be my parents, to have raised their children for about 1.5 decades in the Malaysian cultural context, and 23 hours later be faced with that task now in the Canadian cultural context. There are many different definitions of culture, but culture is usefully conceived of as a set of distinctive patterns of beliefs and behaviors that are shared by a group of people and that serve to regulate their daily living. Therefore, culture is both big and abstract, but at the same time, small and personal. These beliefs and behaviors shape how parents care for their offspring, and these unique patterns of caregiving are a principal reason that individuals in different cultures are who they are and sometimes differ so from one another. So when we all talk about parents raising children to be culturally competent members of their society, at the heart of this statement lies some of the following questions. What do these competencies look like? And what are the best ways to help children develop these competencies? Using a cultural approach to parenting science, we should also ask, are the answers to those questions the same for parents in different cultures? What do these parenting beliefs and behaviors look like across different cultures? And do these parenting beliefs and practices have the same meaning? And therefore, do they lead to the same outcomes in children across different cultures? To answer these questions, we use a variety of methods such as surveys, interviews, focus groups, observations, and experiments to study families in different parts of the world and across different ethnic and religious groups within the United States. In this presentation, I will just focus on Chinese families in the US. Let me share one example briefly on a seemingly simple aspect of parenting: warmth. Parental warmth is defined as the affection, care, comfort, concern, nurturance, support, or simply love that children can experience from their parents. Parental warmth contributes to all sorts of positive outcomes in children across different parts of the world. At the time we conducted the study, however, there was a lot of talk about Chinese mothers as tiger mothers. These moms were thought of as cold, unloving, and harsh. And in fact, some research studies using surveys found that Asian and Asian American mothers scored lower on levels of warmth than their white counterparts, further fueling this image of the Asian tiger mother. However, some of us argued that there was a problem with how these mothers' warmth was being measured. The surveys mostly asked about ways of showing warmth that were based on previous knowledge derived from samples of white European American mothers. These practices tended to focus on outward, expressive, and direct ways of showing warmth. So, these surveys were less suited to capture the parenting of mothers from other cultures, resulting in a poor understanding of parenting in these cultures. So instead, we interviewed Chinese American and white American mothers about their beliefs and understandings of warmth and affection and how they showed their children that they loved and cared for them. So, what did we find? First, compared to their white American counterparts, Chinese American mothers equally valued showing their children that they loved and cared for them, countering the cold tiger mother stereotype. Both groups of mothers also similarly talked about spending time with their children as a primary way to make their children feel loved and cared for. However, Where they differed was that Chinese American mothers as a group were less likely to use outward, direct ways to show warmth or affection, like hugging, kissing, and saying I love you, due to traditional cultural values of modesty and restraint. Instead, when asked about the ways in which they showed their children that they loved and cared for them, these mothers were more likely to discuss indirect ways, that is, what they do for their children, such as cooking their children's favorite foods, making sure that they were warm, and guiding and providing teaching and learning opportunities for their children. We found this to be true for Korean American mothers, as well as mothers in Japan, China, and Malaysia. We also extended our research to Turkish and Sicilian mothers. And overall, when we used culturally sensitive ways to measure parenting, we revealed both shared and unique parenting beliefs and practices across cultures that were tailored to that particular cultural context. So for immigrant parents, this picture is even more complex. These families must navigate multiple contexts simultaneously. In addition to their heritage culture and their host culture, immigrant parents also navigate the acculturation process, which is the process of cultural and psychological change that takes place as a result of contact between cultural groups. So going back to my parents, they, like many immigrant parents, adapted their parenting. There were aspects of their heritage culture that they insisted we maintain, such as ways of addressing our elders, but they also incorporated new practices that were more normative in Canada, like allowing us to go on sleepovers. These may appear like simple behavioral changes, but they underlie shifts in core beliefs about balancing children's interdependence and autonomy to better match the demands of the new cultural context. Immigrants are also parenting within the immigration context of their host culture, which is shaped by, among other things, the immigration policies and racial landscape of the host culture, where they are now minorities. During the COVID-19 pandemic, this fourth context featured itself more prominently in our research. Building on our existing work with Asian immigrants, we responded quickly to study the experiences of Chinese parents and children in the US in light of the spike in anti-Asian xenophobia. Many of these parents expressed fears and discussed having to modify their parenting to help their children navigate the racialization of the pandemic. Parents and youth both reported high rates of discrimination experiences and shared how these impacted their sense of identity, belongingness, and their mental health. For example, some parents engaged in socialization to help their children find racial pride and strength from their cultural heritage and to engage civically to readdress the inequities and unfair treatment. Whereas others passed on messages to children that they needed to conceal their ethnic identity and selves to avoid being victimized. We're studying the long-term outcomes of these different practices currently. So why are we interested in these questions? From a scientific perspective, a cultural approach to parenting science is invaluable for revealing the full range of human parenting, which can then guide the development of more inclusive theories. From a practical and social justice perspective, inclusive theories can inform intervention programs and policies that support all children to achieve their full potential as socially competent and valued members of society. The research is clear that multilingual and multicultural children are more flexible, resilient, and better able to navigate different spaces than their monocultural peers. All families living in multicultural and diverse societies like the US have the gift of being able to step outside our cultural lenses to learn from, share with, and support each other to have fulfilling parenting experiences while raising multiculturally competent children who thrive in a global society. Thank you.